Welcome back to HOA Catastrophe. I thought it would be a warning. It was a campaign. Karen yelled that my snow pile created a blind spot and she was documenting and fining me. You are going to clear that ice or you will pay for injuries. Her voice cut through the freezing air like a blade. I stood in my driveway holding a shovel, breath fogging in front of me, staring at Virginia Johnson, the Oak Ridge Village Association compliance officer, as she jabbed her finger at the snowbank I had just finished piling near the curb. The snow was fresh, white, and exactly where the plow driver told me to put it 2 hours ago. The pile was maybe 3 feet high, clean, and pressed against the edge of my property line. Virginia had a phone on speaker held high like it was dispatch, screen turned away, and her face was red with cold and fury. Behind her, a delivery driver sat in his idling van at the curb, windows fogged, clearly stuck watching the chaos unfold. I am not clearing anything until you show me the actual rule, I said. She pulled a tabbed evidence binder from under her arm and shoved it into the space between us, pages fluttering in the wind, faces still unobstructed. This is the rule. Section 12, subsection 4. Snow removal must not create visibility hazards. You have created a blind spot. I am documenting this, and you will receive a fine within 24 hours. I glanced at the binder. The tabs were color-coded and the pages looked official, but I could not read any text from where I stood. Virginia smirked. I have all day, and so does my fine meter. The cold bit through my jacket. I am a warehouse supervisor, and I work nights, so I sleep during the day. I had just gotten home an hour ago, shoveled the driveway, and moved the snow exactly where the city plow guy said it was fine. Now Virginia was standing in front of me with a binder and a threat. This was Detroit, Michigan, in the middle of February. An Oak Ridge Village Association treated winter rules like a religion. Every snowfall brought new enforcement patrols, new violation notices, and new fees. I had lived here for 3 years and this was the worst season yet. Virginia had been on my case since December, when I missed a single shovel pass during an overnight storm because I was at work. She fined me $200. I paid it. Then she fined me again in January for ice melt residue on the sidewalk. I paid that too. Now she was inventing a blind spot rule and threatening another fine before I even had time to look at the binder. Where is the actual measurement? I asked. How tall is too tall? She snapped the binder shut. That is for me to determine on a case-by-case basis. You are over the limit. Clear it now, or the fine doubles. I felt my jaw tighten. I run a home-based business, a small logistics consulting side gig with a proper city license, and Virginia had been hinting for weeks that she wanted the HOA to challenge my business license because of parking and traffic. This was not about snow. This was about control. I pulled my phone out of my jacket pocket and opened the voice memo app. I'm going to record this conversation so we both have documentation, I said. Virginia froze for a second, then recovered. Fine. Record whatever you want. I am still documenting your violation. She held up her own phone, screen still turned away, and started narrating into it like she was filing a police report. February 14th, 8:43 in the morning. Resident has created a snow obstruction in violation of Section 12, subsection 4. Resident is refusing to comply. Resident is being hostile. I laughed. Hostile. I am standing here asking you to show me the rule, and you are threatening to double the fine. She ignored me and kept talking into her phone. Resident continues to argue. I am recommending immediate escalation to the compliance board. She lowered the phone and looked at me. You have until tonight to clear that pile. If it is still there tomorrow morning, you will receive a formal notice of non-compliance and a hearing date. And if you miss that hearing, I can make this a Lien conversation in one email. There it was. The threat she had been building to. A lien. On my house. Over a snow pile. I did not respond. I just kept my phone recording and watched her walk back to her car, a silver sedan parked 2 houses down. She got in, slammed the door and sat there for a minute, probably typing up her notes. The delivery driver finally pulled away from the curb, shaking his head. I stood in the driveway and looked at the snow pile. It was clean. It was not blocking anything. The street was wide, and the sightline was clear in both directions. But Virginia had decided it was a problem. In an Oak Ridge village, what Virginia decided became official HOA policy within hours. I pulled out my phone and called my real estate agent Marcus, the guy who sold me the house 3 years ago. He answered on the second ring. Marcus, I need you to explain something to me. Can the HOA actually put a lien on my house over a snow pile? He paused. They can try. If they follow their own process and you do not respond, they can escalate fees into a lien. But they have to give you notice, a hearing, and a chance to dispute. Why? I told him what just happened. He exhaled slowly. Virginia is trying to skip steps. If she files a lien without proper notice, that is a violation of Michigan HOA law. You need to document everything. Every conversation, every notice, every fee. And you need to check the HOA portal to make sure they are not backdating anything. I thanked him and hung up. Then I opened the Oak Ridge Village Association portal on my phone. The website was slow and clunky, but I logged in and checked my account. There were 2 new notices posted in the last hour. The first one was dated today, February 14th, and it said I had failed to attend a hearing on February 10th about a prior snow removal violation. I stared at the screen. I never received a notice about a hearing on February 10th. I scrolled down. The second notice was a formal non-compliance letter with a fee schedule. It said I owed $400 in fines, plus a $50 administrative fee, and if I did not pay within 7 days, the account would be sent to collections, and a lien filing would begin. I took screenshots of everything. Then I checked my email. Nothing. No hearing notice. No emails from the HOA at all since January. I checked my spam folder. Nothing. I checked my physical mailbox. Empty except for grocery store flyers. Virginia had posted a backdated hearing notice to make it look like I missed a required appearance. And now she was using that fake missed hearing to justify escalating the fines and starting the lien process. I went inside, hung up my jacket, and sat down at my kitchen table. My hands were shaking, not from the cold but from anger. I opened my laptop and logged into the HOA portal on the desktop version. The system had a document upload feature where residents could submit evidence or appeals. I uploaded my screenshots, my voice recording from this morning, and a signed statement explaining that I never received a hearing notice. I hit submit. The page refreshed and showed a confirmation message. Then I refreshed the page again to check my submission history. The upload was gone. I checked the timestamp. It said the submission had been received, but when I clicked the link, it returned an error. I tried again. Same result. The system was eating my evidence. I grabbed my phone and called Marcus again. Marcus, the portal is deleting my uploads. I submitted evidence, and it disappeared. He swore under his breath. That is portal evidence tampering. If they are doing that, you need to bypass the portal entirely. Email everything directly to the HOA management company and CC the board president. Do it now, and keep copies of the sent emails. Print everything. Do not rely on their system. I pulled up the HOA contact list and found the management company email and the board president's email. I drafted a message, attached all my evidence, and sent it. Then I printed copies of everything, the screenshots, the voice recording transcript, the email confirmations, and Marcus's warnings about liens and disclosures. I put it all in a folder. Then I checked the weather. A storm warning had just been issued. Heavy snow was starting tonight, and the forecast said we could get another 8 inches by morning. I had to clear the current pile, document the cleared space, and make sure I had photographic proof of compliance before the storm hit. If I did not, Virginia would claim I failed to clear it and use that as justification for the lien. I grabbed my jacket, went back outside, and started shoveling. The pile was only 3 feet high, but it was dense and heavy. I moved it across the street to the public easement where the city plow had dumped other piles. It took me 40 minutes. By the time I finished, my back was sore and my hands were numb. I took photos of the cleared curb, the empty driveway, and the new pile location. Then I uploaded the photos to my cloud storage and emailed them to Marcus with a timestamp. That night, the snow started. I was at work, supervising the night shift at the warehouse, when my phone buzzed with a new email. It was from the Oak Ridge Village Association Management Company. The subject line said, Snow Removal Dispute and Evidence Submission. I opened it. The message was short and cold. Dear resident, we have reviewed your submission dated February 14th. Unfortunately, the evidence you provided does not override the compliance officer's on-site determination. The hearing notice was posted to your account on February 8th, and it is your responsibility to check the portal regularly. The missed hearing has been noted, and the fine schedule stands. You have until February 21st to pay the outstanding balance of $450. Failure to pay will result in late fees and initiation of the lien filing process. I read it twice. They were doubling down. They were claiming the hearing notice was posted on February 8th, 2 days before the supposed hearing date, and they were putting the responsibility on me to check the portal every day. I had checked the portal on February 9th, and there was no notice. I had the login history to prove it. I forwarded the email to Marcus and added a note. They are lying about the posting date. How do I prove the notice was backdated? Marcus responded within an hour. You need server logs or metadata from the portal that shows the actual posting timestamp. Most HOA portals keep hidden admin logs. If you can get a subpoena or a legal records request, you can force them to produce the logs. But that takes time and money. In the meantime, keep everything you have and do not pay the fine. If you pay, they will claim you admitted fault. I stared at my phone. A legal records request meant hiring a lawyer. I did not have lawyer money for a snow pile dispute. But I also could not let them put a lien on my house. I needed another option. I called Marcus. Marcus, what if I go to the next board meeting and challenge this in person? Can I demand they produce the logs in front of everyone? He paused. You can try, but board meetings are controlled environments. They will shut you down if you do not follow their agenda rules. You need leverage, something that makes them afraid of you, not the other way around. What do you have? I thought about it. I have recordings of Virginia threatening me. I have screenshots showing the notice was not there when I checked. I have email proof that the portal deleted my uploads. And I have a witness, the delivery driver who saw the whole confrontation this morning. Marcus exhaled. That is good. But you need one more thing. You need proof of intent. If you can show that Virginia is targeting you personally, and that the HOA is helping her do it, then you have a discrimination or harassment case. That is what scares boards. Not rules disputes, but liability. I hung up and sat in my office at the warehouse, staring at the email thread. Proof of intent. I needed Virginia to admit, on the record, that this was personal. I thought back to the confrontation this morning. She had said, I can make this a lien conversation in one email. That was a threat, but it was not quite proof of intent. I needed her to say more. I needed her to escalate. And I knew she would, because she always did. I just had to give her the opportunity. I finished my shift and drove home through the falling snow. The streets were empty and quiet, and by the time I pulled into my driveway, there was already 2 inches of fresh snow on the ground. I grabbed my shovel and cleared the driveway again, working fast before the accumulation got worse. I took more photos, uploaded them, and emailed them to Marcus. Then I went inside, showered, and tried to sleep. But I could not. My mind kept running through scenarios. What if Virginia showed up tomorrow morning and claimed I had not cleared the snow fast enough? What if she invented a new rule about snow depth or shovel width? What if the board refused to hear my appeal and just pushed the lien through? The next morning, I woke up to 6 inches of new snow and a voicemail from Virginia. I did not listen to it. I just got dressed, went outside, and started shoveling. The driveway took an hour. The sidewalk took another 30 minutes. I cleared every inch, salted the walkway, and placed a reflective triangle marker set near the wheel of my car so it would be visible in the snow. I took photos of everything. Then, I checked the HOA portal. There was a new notice posted. It was dated today, February 15th, and it said I had failed to clear snow within the required 12-hour window after the storm ended. The fine was $200. I stared at the screen. The storm had not ended yet. It was still snowing. I took a screenshot and sent it to Marcus with a message. "They are fining me for a storm that is still happening." He responded immediately. "That is insane. Document the weather. Screenshot the forecast. Print everything. You are going to need it." I opened the weather app and took screenshots showing the active snow warning and the forecast for continued snowfall through the afternoon. Then I printed everything and added it to my folder. I was putting on my boots to go back outside when my phone buzzed. It was a text message from an unknown number. "This is Virginia Johnson. You are in violation of multiple snow removal regulations. I am recommending the board initiate lien proceedings immediately. You have been warned." I took a screenshot of the text and added it to my folder. Then I replied, "I have cleared my property twice in 24 hours and documented everything. If you continue to file false violations, I will pursue legal action for harassment." She did not respond. Instead, 10 minutes later, I received an email from the Oak Ridge Village Association board president. The email said the board had reviewed my account and determined that I was a repeat offender with a pattern of non-compliance. The email said a special hearing had been scheduled for February 18th, 3 days from now, and my attendance was mandatory. If I failed to attend, the board would proceed with a lien filing and would also recommend the city review my home business license for possible revocation due to HOA violations. I read the email 3 times. They were threatening my business license. That was the stakes Virginia had been building to all along. If I lost my business license, I lost my consulting income, and that was a significant part of how I paid my mortgage. I forwarded the email to Marcus and called him. "Marcus, they are going after my business license now. They are saying HOA violations are grounds for the city to revoke it. Is that even legal?" He swore. "No. HOA violations and city business licenses are separate jurisdictions. They cannot force the city to revoke your license just because you have HOA fines. But they can file a complaint and make your life hell. And if the city opens an investigation, you will have to spend time and money defending yourself. This is intimidation. They are trying to make you fold." I clenched my fist. "I am not folding. Marcus, I need you to come to that hearing with me. I need a witness, and I need someone who knows real estate law." He agreed. Then he said something that stuck with me. "You need to flip the script. Right now, they think they have all the power because they control the process. You need to make them afraid of you. Find something they do not want exposed. Find their mistake, their lie, their dirty secret, and drop it in front of everyone at that hearing. That is how you win." I spent the next 2 days digging. I went through every email, every notice, every portal screenshot, and every payment confirmation I had saved over the past 3 years. I found patterns. In December, I had been fined $200 for missing a single shovel pass during an overnight storm. I checked the HOA bylaws. The rule said snow removal must be completed within 12 hours of the end of a storm. The storm had ended at 6 in the morning. I had shoveled by 3 in the afternoon. That was 9 hours. Virginia had claimed I missed the window and fined me anyway. I had paid it because I did not want to fight. In January, I had been fined for ice melt residue on the sidewalk. I checked the rule. It said excess chemical application is prohibited. There was no definition of excess. Virginia had decided my application was excessive based on a photo she took after a second storm melted and refroze. I had paid that fine too. Now I was looking at a pattern of vague rules, subjective enforcement, and escalating fines. And I was looking at a compliance officer who had a personal grudge. On February 17th, the day before the hearing, I got another email. This one was from the HOA management company, and it included an attached document labeled Account Ledger. I opened it. The ledger showed every fine, fee, and payment I had made since moving in. But there were also line items I had never seen before. A $50 records request fee from November. A $75 administrative processing fee from October. a $30 late payment penalty from September, even though I had paid on time. The ledger showed a total balance of $780. I checked my bank records. I had paid every fine the HOA had sent me. I had confirmation emails and cleared checks. The mystery fees had never been billed. They had been added to the ledger after the fact to inflate my balance and justify the lien. I took screenshots of the ledger and my payment confirmations and sent everything to Marcus. Marcus, they are inventing fees. I have proof I paid everything they billed, but now they are adding backdated charges to make it look like I am delinquent. He responded with one word: fraud. Then he called me. This is fraud. They are manufacturing a debt to justify the lien. You need to bring this to the hearing, and you need to stay calm. Do not let them rattle you. Let them talk. Let them commit to their story. And then drop your evidence and watch them panic. The hearing was at 7 in the evening on February 18th in the Oak Ridge Village Clubhouse. I arrived early with Marcus. The clubhouse was a small brick building near the entrance to the neighborhood, with a parking lot that was half covered in plowed snow. I parked and grabbed my folder. Marcus met me at the door. Ready? He asked. I nodded. Inside, the board was already seated at a long table, the president, the treasurer, and the secretary. Virginia sat off to the side with her binder. There were about a dozen other residents in the room, most of them older couples who lived near me. I recognized a few faces. The board president, a man named Gerald, called the meeting to order. He read through some routine business, then looked at me. We are here tonight to address the compliance issues raised by Officer Johnson regarding the property at 42 Maple Drive. Mr. He checked his notes. The resident has been issued multiple violations for snow removal noncompliance, and Officer Johnson has recommended that we proceed with a lien filing and notify the city regarding his business license. Gerald, I said, standing up. Before we get into that, I would like to submit evidence for the record. Gerald frowned. You can speak during the public comment period. I shook my head. No, I am submitting evidence now, because what you are about to discuss is based on false information. The room went quiet. Virginia stood up. This is out of order. The resident does not get to dictate the agenda. I ignored her and walked to the front of the room. I placed my folder on the table in front of Gerald. This folder contains screenshots, emails, payment confirmations, weather reports, and recorded conversations that prove Officer Johnson has been filing false violations, backdating notices, and fabricating fees. I also have proof that the HOA portal has been deleting evidence I submitted. If you proceed with this lien, I will file a formal complaint with the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, and I will pursue legal action for fraud and harassment. Gerald opened the folder and started flipping through the pages. His face went pale. Virginia stood up and pointed at me. He is lying. Everything I have done is within my authority as compliance officer. I turned to her. Then explain why the account ledger shows fees I was never billed. Explain why the hearing notice from February 8th does not appear in my portal login history from February 9th. Explain why you threatened me with a lien before I even had a chance to dispute the first fine. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Gerald looked at her. Virginia, is this true? Did you backdate the hearing notice? She hesitated. The notice was posted according to procedure. That is not what I asked, Gerald said. Did you post the notice on February 8th, or did you backdate it after the fact? Virginia did not answer. One of the other board members, the treasurer, leaned forward. Gerald, if she backdated notices, that is a liability issue. We need to audit the compliance process. Marcus stood up. I am Marcus Chin, a real estate agent and a witness to some of these events. I advised this resident to document everything because I suspected the compliance process was being abused. If you review the evidence in that folder, you will see a clear pattern of harassment and fabricated charges. The HOA is exposing itself to a lawsuit. Gerald closed the folder and looked at Virginia. Virginia, I am suspending your authority as compliance officer pending an internal audit. You are not to issue any new violations or contact any residents until this is resolved. Virginia's face went red. You cannot do that. I have been doing this job for 4 years. Gerald held up a hand. You have been doing it incorrectly. This meeting is adjourned. We will reconvene in 2 weeks after the audit is complete. The room erupted in murmurs. A few residents stood up and started talking to each other. Virginia grabbed her binder and stormed out of the room. I watched her go, then turned to Marcus. That was step 1, he said. Now we wait. 2 days later, I received a phone call from the HOA management company. The caller introduced himself as the company attorney. He said the board had completed a preliminary audit of Virginia's compliance records and had found multiple irregularities, including backdated notices, unapproved fee additions, and evidence of portal tampering. He said the management company was recommending that Virginia be removed from her position and that all fines issued in the past 6 months be reviewed. He also said the company was prepared to issue refunds for any improperly charged fees. I asked about the lien. He said the lien filing had been canceled and the account ledger had been corrected to reflect only legitimate charges. I asked about my business license. He said the board had never actually filed a complaint with the city, and Virginia's threat had been an empty intimidation tactic. He apologized on behalf of the company and the board. I thanked him and hung up. Then I called Marcus. Marcus, they folded. He laughed. I knew they would. You had them dead to rights. Now what? I said, now I want them to finish the job. I want Virginia gone, and I want the board to admit what happened in front of the whole neighborhood. Marcus paused. You want a public apology? I said yes. And I want a policy change so this cannot happen again. Marcus said, you are going to need leverage for that. The board will not voluntarily humiliate themselves. You need to force their hand. I thought about it. Then I remembered something Virginia had said during one of our confrontations. I scrolled through my voice memos and found the recording from the morning she threatened me in my driveway. I listened to it again. At the end of the recording, after she had finished her official documentation speech, she had muttered something under her breath. I rewound and listened closer. She had said, people like you think you can ignore the rules because you work nights and nobody sees you. I am going to make an example of you. I played it for Marcus. That is it, he said. That is proof of intent. She admitted it is personal. She admitted she is targeting you to make an example. You drop that at the next meeting and she is done. I grinned. I did not correct her lie because I wanted her to commit to it in public. Now I had the trump card. An audio clip where Virginia admits it is personal and she wants to make an example of me. And I was going to deploy it by sending it to the board and homeowners at the same time so nobody could bury it. The follow-up meeting was scheduled for March 4th, 2 weeks after the original hearing. In the meantime, a neighbor petition started circulating. One of the residents who had been at the hearing, an older man named Ed, had started collecting signatures calling for Virginia's removal and demanding that the board implement transparent compliance procedures. Within a week, he had over 50 signatures. He sent the petition to the board and CC'd the entire neighborhood email list. The board responded with a terse acknowledgement and said the petition would be addressed at the March 4th meeting. I stayed quiet and let the momentum build. On March 3rd, the day before the meeting, I received a text from an unknown number. It said, "You have destroyed my reputation, and I will not forget this." I took a screenshot and forwarded it to Marcus. Marcus said, "She is panicking. Do not engage. Let her dig her own grave." The next evening, I arrived at the clubhouse 30 minutes early. The parking lot was packed. There were at least 40 residents inside, many of them people I had never seen at a meeting before. Ed found me near the door. "I heard you have something," he said. I nodded. "I have proof she targeted me personally." Ed smiled. "Good. Drop it during public comment. Let everyone hear it." The meeting started at 7. Gerald opened with a statement. He said the board had completed a full audit of the compliance process and had identified serious procedural failures. He said all fines issued by Virginia Johnson in the past 6 months were being reviewed, and improperly charged fees would be refunded. He said Virginia had been relieved of her compliance officer duties pending further investigation. Then he opened the floor for public comment. Ed stood up first. He read the petition aloud and asked the board to adopt new rules requiring transparency, documentation, and appeals for all compliance actions. The board agreed. Then I stood up. I walked to the front and placed my phone on the table. "I have a recording," I said. "It is from the morning Officer Johnson confronted me in my driveway and threatened me with a lien. I am going to play it now." I hit play. The room went silent as Virginia's voice filled the space, first the official documentation speech, then the muttered comment at the end. "People like you think you can ignore the rules because you work nights and nobody sees you. I am going to make an example of you." Gasps rippled through the room. Virginia stood up, face red. "That is out of context." I cut her off. "It is not out of context. You said you were making an example of me. You admitted this was personal. You fabricated fees, backdated notices, and threatened my business license. And I have sent this recording to the board and to every homeowner on the email list so nobody can bury it. If you are enjoying this absolute chaos, hit that like button and subscribe so you do not miss the next one." Gerald banged his gavel. "Order. Miss Johnson, do you have a response?" Virginia looked around the room. Dozens of faces stared back at her, some angry, some shocked. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Finally, she said, "I was doing my job." Gerald shook his head. "No, you were abusing your authority. The board accepts your resignation, effective immediately, and you will issue a formal written apology to this resident and to the Homeowners Association." Virginia's face went pale. "I am not resigning. You cannot force me." Gerald leaned forward. "Then we will vote to remove you." All in favor. Every board member raised a hand. The room erupted in applause. Virginia grabbed her coat and stormed out. I watched her go, then turned to face the crowd. One of the neighbors, a woman named Lisa, stood up. "I have been fined 3 times this winter for minor things. Can I appeal?" Gerald nodded. "All appeals will be reviewed. If you were improperly charged, you will be refunded." Another resident stood up. "What about the portal? Are you fixing it so our evidence does not disappear?" Gerald said yes. "We are switching to a new management software with full audit trails. No more deletions." The meeting continued for another hour as residents shared their own stories of harassment and overreach. By the end of the night, the board had agreed to a full overhaul of the compliance process, including written appeals procedures, mandatory documentation, and quarterly audits. I left the clubhouse that night feeling lighter than I had in months. Marcus met me in the parking lot. "You did it," he said. "You flipped the whole thing." I shrugged. "I just documented everything and waited for her to screw up." He laughed. "That is how you win." The next week, I received a formal letter from the Oak Ridge Village Association. It said the HOA was issuing a full refund of all improperly charged fees, voiding all ledger entries related to fabricated fines, and issuing a written correction to all residents explaining the compliance process changes. The letter included a personal apology signed by Gerald and the board. It said the association regretted the actions of the former compliance officer and was committed to transparent, fair enforcement going forward. I framed the letter and hung it in my office. A few days later, I got a call from the city business licensing office. They said they had received an inquiry from the HOA about my home business license, but the inquiry had been flagged as retaliatory and dismissed. They said my license was in good standing, and there were no issues. I thanked them and hung up. Then I checked the HOA portal one last time. My account showed a 0 balance. All fines had been removed. The hearing notices had been deleted. The ledger was clean. In the weeks that followed, I watched the neighborhood change. Virginia was gone, and the new compliance officer, a younger guy named Tom, actually followed the rules. He posted notices in advance, responded to emails, and gave residents reasonable deadlines. Fines dropped. Appeals were heard. The portal worked, and slowly, the tension that had been building for years started to fade. Ed stopped me one afternoon as I was shoveling my driveway after another storm. "You know," he said, "you did something most people are too scared to do. You fought back." I smiled. "I just did not want to lose my house over a snow pile." He laughed. "Well, you saved a lot of us in the process. Because once you stood up, everyone else found the courage to speak up too. And that is how these things change. Not because the board suddenly grows a conscience, but because one person says enough and makes them prove their case." I thought about that as I finished shoveling. He was right. The HOA had power because residents were afraid to challenge it. But once you force them to follow their own rules, once you document everything and refuse to back down, the whole system collapses. Because bullies only win when you let them. And I was done letting anyone push me around. The winter ended, the snow melted, the fines stopped, and Oak Ridge Village Association became a quieter, fairer place to live. I kept my folder of evidence in my office, just in case, but I never needed it again. Virginia never came back. The board issued a formal statement saying she had resigned for personal reasons and thanking her for her service. Nobody believed it, but nobody cared. She was gone, and that was enough. I ran into Marcus a few months later at a neighborhood barbecue. He asked how things were going. I told him about the new compliance officer, the policy changes, and the refunds. He grinned. "I told you. You just needed to make them afraid of you." I laughed. I did not make them afraid. I just made them accountable. He shook his head. "Same thing. Accountability is terrifying to people who are used to getting away with whatever they want. That is why it works." We clinked our beers and watched the kids play in the park. The neighborhood felt different now, lighter, less tense. People waved when they saw each other. Nobody was afraid of the next fine or the next violation notice. And I realized that was what community was supposed to feel like. Not fear and compliance, but cooperation and fairness. It took a fight to get there, but it was worth it. I still work nights at the warehouse. I still shovel my driveway after every storm. And I still check the HOA portal once a week, just to make sure nothing weird is happening. But so far, it has been quiet. And I am okay with quiet. Because quiet means I can focus on my work, my business, and my life without worrying about some petty tyrant with a clipboard and a grudge. And that is all I ever wanted. Glad you were here for this one.